Welcome to Man in America, a voice of reason in a world gone mad. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. Today, we're diving into the Epstein files. Over 3 million pages. And what's in those pages is going to shake you. Names, dates, patterns, connections that go far deeper and far higher than most people are ready to accept. But before we get into specifics, I want to do something a little different. I want to pull way back, and I mean way, way back, 100,000 foot view. Because what you're about to see in these documents is not an isolated scandal. It's not about one man. It's not about one island. What these files reveal is a symptom, a glimpse, a tiny crack in the surface of something much, much bigger. And if you don't understand the bigger picture first, the details won't make sense. So stay with me here. Let me walk you through something. So there's a book called Political Ponerology. Okay, so it was written by a Polish psychologist named Andrew Lobachevsky. So this man survived communist occupation. He lived under totalitarian control. And he spent his entire career studying just one question. Just one. How does evil take over a society? And what he found was stunning. So he found that it follows a pattern, the same pattern, every single time. He gave it a name, pathocracy. And all that word means is this: a small system where a small number of people with no conscience, no empathy, no ability to feel what you and I feel if we see a child suffering, those people take control over a society of normal people. Now, just let that sit for a moment. These aren't people who are just ambitious. They're not just greedy. They're broken. Something is missing inside of them. And here's the dangerous part. They're better at pretending to be normal than you and I are at being normal. They study you. They study your emotions. They learn exactly what to say, exactly how to act, and exactly how to earn your trust. And they use it. And they manipulate, they deceive, and they climb. Now, here's how it takes root. So during times of comfort and prosperity, societies get lazy. You stop paying attention. I stop paying attention. We stop looking closely at who we're putting into positions of power. We start making decisions based on feelings instead of discernment. And the author of this book, Lobachevsky, had a word for this. He called it the hysteroidal cycle. Basically, the good times make us soft. And soft people don't guard the gates. And that's when the predators move in. They attach themselves to a cause, a movement, a party, an ideology. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be religious, political, economic. The cause is just a mask because they don't believe in any of it. They use it to gain access. And because they're master manipulators, you can't tell the difference between someone who's genuinely believing in the cause and someone who's wearing it like a costume. And so once they get a foothold, they do something very specific. So Lobachevsky called it negative selection. They start removing the honest people, the competent people, the people with integrity. And they replace them with others they're just like themselves, other manipulators, other predators, people who will do what they're told, not because they're talented, but because they're controllable. And over time, every layer of leadership gets infected. The language starts to change. Words get redefined. Good becomes bad. Bad becomes good. The people telling the truth become the enemy. And normal people start to feel like the world has gone insane because it has. The inmates are running the asylum. That's pathocracy. Now, we've seen it play out in communist regimes. We've seen it in dictatorships. We've seen it throughout history. But here's where I want you to go with me. I'm not going to tell you what to believe. I'm just going to ask you to think. What if this didn't just happen in one generation? What if certain families figured this out centuries ago? What if they realized That the real power was never in sitting on the throne. Thrones are visible. Thrones get overthrown. What if they figured out that the real power is actually behind the throne? And what if they started with money? What if centuries ago certain families positioned themselves at the center of banking and finance? What if they lent money to kings on both sides of wars and collected the debt no matter who won? What if they figured out that whoever controls the money supply controls the nation without even showing their face? And what if, generation after generation, they pass this knowledge down, not in schools or books, but within the family? What if accumulating power was the family business and they had a multi-century head start on everyone else? Now, what if they moved into government? What if they started placing people into positions of power? Not people who would lead with conviction, people who could be controlled. What if the qualification for the high office wasn't intelligence or integrity? What if it was compromisability? Just sit with that for a second. What if the path to power was designed so that in order to climb, you had to do things, dark things, things that could be used against you later? What if bribery was the carrot, but blackmail was the leash? What if every president, every prime minister, every central banker had to pass through a gate, and that gate required you to compromise yourself in ways that could never be made public? And once you did, you were owned. You vote how they tell you. You speak how they tell you. You act how they tell you. Because the alternative is the total destruction of everything that you've built. What if this system built itself over centuries into a pyramid? Billions of good, normal people like you and I at the bottom, just trying to raise their families, live honest lives. But above them, layers of power, local government, national government, financial institutions, intelligence agencies. And at each level, the gatekeeping gets tighter, the compromises get darker, the control gets stronger. At the very top, a very small number of families. People whose names you may not have heard of, some that you have. People who sit above governments, above corporations, above nations. They don't run for office. They don't need to. They own the people who do. What if the wars, the financial crashes, the political theater, the division, the chaos, what if none of it was accidental? What if it was architecture? That brings us to Jeffrey Epstein. Because what if Epstein wasn't an anomaly? What if he wasn't some rogue predator who just so happened to befriend the most powerful people on the planet? What if he was a tool, a cog in a very specific machine? What if the island, the planes, the parties, the cameras, all of it was designed to do exactly what we just talked about? Compromise, capture, control. What if the purpose was never just the evil acts themselves? What if it was about creating leverage over the people who participated? You want to be a senator, a president, a CEO? Fine. But first you walk through this door. And once you do, you belong to them. So these 3 million pages that just got released, they're just the edge, the tiny visible corner of a control system that's been operating in shadows for longer than any of us have been alive. That's what we're looking at today. Not just names and flight logs. We're looking at the machine itself. But here's what they didn't count on. So Lobachevsky discovered something that should give every one of us hope. He found that pathocracies, no matter how powerful, no matter how entrenched, they always carry the seeds of their own destruction. There's 2 reasons for this. First, the system promotes based on loyalty, not competence, which means that over time, every critical position gets filled by someone who's terrible at their job. The system gets more corrupt and more incompetent at the same time. It's a cancer that eventually kills its own host. And you can see it right now. Look around. The decisions coming out of major institutions are so blatantly absurd, so transparently corrupt that even people who were never paying attention before are starting to say, wait a minute, something's really, really wrong here. But second, normal people like you and I are always the majority, always. And normal people have something that predators don't have: conscience, intuition, empathy, the ability to recognize truth. It takes time, it takes pain, but eventually people start seeing through it. They start talking to each other. They start connecting the dots. They start building understanding outside of the controlled channels. And once enough people see the system for what it is, the game is over. Because the entire structure depends on one thing: your ignorance. It depends on you not seeing it. It depends on you believing this is all just random chaos. It's just human nature. But it's not human nature. It's a disease. A very specific, very identifiable, and very predictable disease. And it has a name: pathocracy. And the cure is exactly what's happening right now. These files that are being released, that's sunlight. People are waking up and asking questions they were never supposed to ask. That's the immune response. Millions of people around the world are refusing to look away now, refusing to comply, and refusing to be silent. So that's the beginning of the end. Lobachevsky's greatest discovery was this: knowledge of the system is itself the cure. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once enough people see it, the pyramid doesn't crack. It crumbles. Now, before we get into these documents, I need to say something. I want to warn you. Some of the information I'm reviewing today is deeply disturbing. I'm not going to show pictures, but I'll be going through documents that detail child sex trafficking, torture, human sacrifice, cannibalism. I don't like covering these topics. I honestly, I wish I didn't have to, but someone has to. Because if everyone looks away, the system wins. And I also want you to keep something really important in mind. There's over 3 million pages, and not everything in them should be taken as gospel. In fact, that could be part of the agenda, is to bury truth alongside lies, to create confusion, and to discredit anyone who tries to make sense of it. There are most likely innocent people whose names appear in these documents who have nothing to do with any of this. And there's probably a lot of guilty people whose names never appear once. That's how a system like this works. It protects the ones at the top. So as we go through this, just try to be level-headed, be objective. Don't grab a name and run with it. Think critically, weigh the evidence. That's how we maintain our credibility. That's how the truth actually comes to light, not through hysteria, through discernment. That said, what's in these documents is staggering, and the world needs to see it. So we're going to get into it. Now, before we do that, I just want to remind everyone, especially those that are watching on Rumble, thank you for supporting a free speech platform like Rumble. Thank you for watching me here. If you're watching on YouTube, you should be watching on Rumble. If you're on Rumble, make sure you hit that follow button. Make sure you hit that thumbs up. And honestly, let me know what you think in the comments. Did I miss something? Am I wrong for some reason? Am I right for some reason? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. I really appreciate getting those comments. Also, just so you know, we've recently relaunched the Man in America website. So if you go to maninamerica.com, actually, I'll pull it up for you. If you go to maninamerica.com, you can see we have our new website. This is kind of the version 1.0 of the site, the update. But just so you know, on here, you have ways of getting a hold of me. It has a list of all my social media profiles, where you can find the show, contact form. We're going to be updating this a lot more with content library and all kinds of stuff. But just know that if you want to share the show with somebody, which I greatly appreciate, one of the best ways is just say, hey, go check out maninamerica.com. It's got every place that you can watch and download the show. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this dark dungeon of information. Now, if there's one thing that you'll gather from this entire show, it's that the people in positions of power, many of whom that we trusted greatly, are not looking out for us. And it's not a bad thing for us to realize that, because the quicker we can understand that, the quicker we can stop relying on them and take control into our own hands. Now, one thing that I want to highlight with this is that be careful about how this information affects you psychologically. It's very easy to get really down and depressed and feel like the whole world is just so evil. That's not true, though. Actually, the whole world is mostly good. It's mostly good people like you and I that just want to live a good life. It's just that the power structures have become evil over time. That's what the pathocracy shows us. It's the accumulation of power over generations that happens. But right now, what is happening is that people are becoming aware of that evil, and this is so important. But it's really, really important that we don't let this fall into these dark rabbit holes. Now, one thing that I've been working on as a solution to this, which I highly recommend you check out, is I'm building an online private community, which is launching very, very soon, called the ARC community. So the website is buildthearc.com. We haven't opened it up yet for the public. We have a waiting list of thousands of people that are ready to get in once we start opening it up. The whole point is to create a private, secure place where you can meet people that see the world like you do, people that sense that we're living in the days of Noah, people that are trying to be more prepared and building community. So if you are feeling isolated, you want to meet more people that think like you do and band together with them, the ARC community is one of the best places that can happen for you. So just check it out. Go to buildthearc.com. That link will be in the description. Get on the waiting list. Just put in your name and your email, and we'll let you know as soon as it opens up. We'll probably do it in stages because we can't have everyone come in all at once, but it's going to be rolled out very soon. But not only is it going to be a place where you can meet people, you can find local people that are in your chapter that you can connect with, you can rely on, but it's going to be an amazing resource for preparedness and finding experts that can help you with questions about food storage or water purification or solar off-grid living. And the whole purpose is to really help us to get back to where Americans need to be as being self-reliant, but doing it in a private place. It's not just some Facebook group that's being monitored by Mark Zuckerberg. So if you want to learn more about that and get on the waiting list, just be notified as soon as it opens up, go to buildthearc.com, which is what you see right there. Okay, so I'm going to start with this short video. This is from the U.S. Deputy Attorney, Deputy AG, who has confirmed that there are images of abuse, injuries, and deaths of children in the Epstein files, but the scenes have not been made public. And the reason why I'm starting with this is because what we're seeing is just the tip of the iceberg. And he's also confirming in here that there is footage and images of abuse, death, torture, and terrible things. Now, I'm glad those weren't released because I don't want those kind of images to be passed around. But we have to realize that this is much deeper than we even think. I'll play this real quick, 18 seconds.
Any depiction of CSAM or child pornography was obviously excluded. Anything that would jeopardize an active federal investigation. And finally, anything that depicts or contain images of death, physical abuse, or injury, also not produced. Any depiction. So
again, they have it. They're not showing us. So the whole idea that this whole thing is a hoax, that it's fake, it's not. Though I wish it was. But I want to first start by looking at the bigger picture of this. So here's an email from Jeffrey Epstein to Peter Thiel saying, quote, "As you probably know, I represent the Rothschilds." So here you can see this is from responding. So the initial email at the bottom, this is from Jeffrey Epstein to Peter Thiel saying, "As you probably know, I represent the Rothschilds." And he says a few other things like that. He goes, "I was hoping to figure out a way for the bank that has $160 billion in management can do something in tech. Best client in the world, prehistoric products. It can wait. Good luck in China." Very strange things. I'll be in Europe the 20th to 28th, then the islands. So if you want to come around, the world going west. Anyway, so this is an email exchange from Epstein and Peter Thiel. Now, one thing to know about Epstein, and we won't be digging into it as much in this particular show, but he was heavily involved in a lot of scientific stuff, companies, innovations, patents, and he was very, very transhumanist in a lot of these things, even getting into a lot of the trans agenda. So Epstein wasn't just some financier or some blackmail kind of guy. But what's important here, though, is that he's saying he's saying in a private email to Peter Thiel, a very powerful man, that he represents the Rothschilds. So I just want you to keep this in the back of your mind, because as much as a lot of us and you probably have seen this, have looked for ties of Epstein to Mossad and Israel and the CIA and these intelligence agencies, which I think there's a lot of truth in that. I almost think that that's what the rulers or what these bloodlines, these families like the Rothschilds and others that we're probably not even aware of, they want us to think that. They want us to think that, oh, it's just a Mossad operation. But whether it's Israel, Mossad, the CIA, our own DOJ, a lot of these institutions and governments report up. And so I think that it's almost too easy to say, oh, yeah, Epstein, he's Mossad. Well, maybe at this level halfway down the pyramid, but there's a whole power structure above that that people aren't focusing on enough. And again, right here, he's saying, I represent the Rothschilds. Continuing, right, here's something else about the Rothschilds. Okay, this is Jeffrey Epstein and someone from the Rothschild family discussed the coup in Ukraine after Maidan in 2014. Right, Epstein saying the coup in Ukraine should provide many opportunities, many. And this Rothschild person says, I miss our conversations and hope you're doing well. I'll be home tomorrow evening. Will you be free? Let's discuss Ukraine. All right, so we know that Ukraine is a proxy war for nation states, but it's much, much more than that. And again, this is another indication that it goes above nations. It goes deep into, I think, the heart of the banking families and probably much deeper than that. But it's hard to kind of peer beyond the levels higher than that. It's not easy. Okay, continuing. This is also very, very weird. Okay, so Epstein named his bank account Baal. So Baal is a demonic being that was worshipped in ancient Israel by some Hebrews before they converted to Judaism. Child sacrifice is a ritual of Baal worshippers, usually through burning. This guy says, like Israel did to Gaza. There's a lot of burning there. Yes, of course. Archaeological discoveries have found thousands of urns with cremated infant and small children remains. Now we have evidence of Epstein's circle killing and even eating children. Here's the image I want you to look at real quick. Memorandum. Okay. So this is instructions from Jeffrey Epstein to someone at JP Morgan. We know JP Morgan was heavily involved with Epstein, the bank, of its executives. Anyway, he's saying, please wire $11,438 to this account, Baal. So literally he's named his this particular bank account Baal. And that also really makes you understand that what we're dealing with, this is not just human stuff. I really believe this is good and evil. This is satanic, as we'll see continued in this. When you get into what's happening with the ritual abuse of children, the torturing, the murdering, the cannibalism, as much as people called us crazy conspiracy theorists over the past, say 5 years or more, people saying, oh gosh, do you really think that the world's run by these Luciferian death cult pedophiles? You're so wacky. Yeah, truth is stranger than fiction, I know. But if you look at what's being revealed in this, I'd say they fit that category of elite pedophiles that rape and torture children and eat them and do all kinds of strange rituals and sacrifice. So it's all here, not to mention all the pizza stuff, which we'll be getting into pizza. It's sickening. It's sickening. And here you go. It's like, why would Jeffrey Epstein name his bank account Baal, who was basically, you could say he was the deity of child sacrifice. Continuing. I tell you, this it gets dark. I gave you the warning. I don't like covering this stuff, but we have to, unfortunately. So this is from Dana Fauci. It says, this is one of the craziest things I've seen so far in the Epstein files. This is back an email that was sent in September 2022. So basically what it is that if you can submit stuff to the FBI, like let's just say that you see some guys that you think are doing some sort of illegal operation, that's kind of beyond local police type stuff. You can actually submit this information to the FBI. And so this is an email from an agent, a special agent from the FBI, just kind of passing this up the chain because they got a submission that was submitted to them on 8/31/2022 about human trafficking. This is weird stuff. Okay, it says, this is the submitted text. It said, Jeffrey Epstein was bringing children to the Omni, which is a hotel, to human sex traffic them out to rich business people. If you go to 901 East Carey Street, Suite 210 in Richmond, Virginia, in the South State Bank on the top floor, there is a housekeeping door. I think inside the men's restroom once you enter on the right. Inside this should be a crawl space in the ceiling, a water faucet, and a wall on the right. The wall on the right, behind the actual wall, contains a passageway with an inscription about Gabe, a human trafficking victim that Jeffrey Epstein kept. I do not know what is behind the wall, but I remember as kids, we were both brought to this area and trafficked in and out of the premises along with other kids. So this is and this is just, again, the tip of the iceberg, this stuff. You think about these things, secret walls and tunnels. There's a lot of mentions of tunnels in these documents too, underground tunnels. It's frightening to think about how little we know about this. Even with this 3 million plus document dump, we know so little. And also just a quick reminder is that this is only the stuff that was surrounding Epstein, right? The Epstein network was only one of probably thousands or tens of thousands or more of these networks. Do you think that the CCP doesn't have its own Epstein-esque networks? The CCP has insane levels of blackmail footage, insane levels of honeypotting, child rape, all kinds of stuff. The KGBs, they mastered it. The KGB, they figured out that pedophilia and child abuse was one of the best blackmail tools there was. So the KGB, working together with the CCP, developed a lot of these tactics. Now, of course, they're being used with other agencies, with Mossad, CIA, etc. But that just remember that. As much as everyone wants to look at Jeffrey Epstein and say, this is the complete picture, it's all this, right? It all goes back to Israel, all goes back to the CIA. This is just one node of so many different networks. Unfortunately, we don't have access to those other ones, but I guarantee you they exist. My guess is what we see through Epstein is like 0.1% or 0.001% of the amount of networks and blackmail operations that are happening around the world, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. This is another one. This is another FBI crisis intake. This is back from 2019. So this was submitted by a victim. And it basically says that on 10/8/2019, Eastern Time, this person, name redacted, date of birth redacted, cell number redacted, called the FBI National Threat Operations Center to report being an Epstein victim. This person provided the following information. This also shows you, the FBI has this information. That's the problem. Is that for a lot of people, they still think that the FBI will deliver justice. And of course, the FBI does some good things, right? They've brought down some, child trafficking rings. They've done good stuff. However, there's a lot of bad stuff that they haven't prosecuted. And I think that they're actively covering up. I mean, again, if you look at, Kash Patel coming out basically as the head of the FBI and saying, look, we've been through it. There's nothing in there. Well, here is a specific information that was submitted that is sickening, right? So here it says, this person whose name was redacted says was raped by Epstein in 1984 when she was 14 years of age. She stated that Epstein drugged her at this and that, redacted, and that prior to being raped, she came in and out of consciousness and stated that Epstein's face was painted like a clown. A 14-year-old raped by a powerful, wealthy, stronger, older man with his face painted like a clown. Just sick. It's sick. It gets worse. I told you this is going to be tough. So here this guy, Hassan, is saying they conducted human sacrifice rituals on Epstein Island, which included eating children. So this is another email that was being passed along from an interview of a purported Epstein victim. The top email is an email thread. It said, "He has more to tell us too," he said. Below, "Thanks, blank. I didn't realize that Bush raped him too. Okay." So this is from what this victim submitted. Now, keep in mind, just a reminder, though it says that Bush raped him right here, we don't know for sure that that actually happened. You can draw your own conclusions. I think a lot of these people in these positions of power, we've suspected this stuff, right? But just keep in mind that we have to be objective with this while still looking at what I think is real stuff, okay? This is sick stuff, okay? He says, "I'd like to add a few other points disclosed by the purported victim. While on this yacht, he witnessed African-American males having sex with white blonde females, all of whom were bleeding during intercourse. He was a victim of a type of ritualistic sacrifice in which his feet were cut open with a scimitar, but left no scarring. On the yacht, he witnessed babies being dismembered, their intestines removed, and individuals eating the feces from these intestines. He was also raped by George Bush the first." And it continues with some other things below there, but I can't comprehend this level of evil. I guess I can comprehend it in thinking that this is stuff that demons would do or that Satan would orchestrate, but when you get into this stuff that they do, which includes children and babies, you get into the adrenochrome harvesting, them eating the feces from the intestines. I don't even know how to process this stuff. I mean, I can't handle it. I've got two girls. I've got my youngest turns 2 in a couple of weeks, and I've got a 5-year-old, and I think being a father, when you come across these things, it's heavy. It's heavy. If I didn't have faith, if I wasn't a believer, I read this stuff, I would just think, why even stick around for this? But because I have faith, and I believe that I'm here on a mission, and that I'm following, I think what God's will is, that's why I'm trying to expose this information and help people understand this stuff and make sense of it. So, continuing. This one's about Prince Andrew, who we know has actually had some pretty serious things come to light. Some accusations have been very well grounded. Here it says, in this email, now let's read it. This is the subject is a reply to Ghislaine Maxwell. And going down, it says, subject, Ghislaine Maxwell. Back in the 90s, Ghislaine Maxwell recruited a girl for a modeling career. Instead of modeling, she was sold as a slave for sex and torture, which is unfortunately very common in how these human trafficking rings operate. It says here, allegedly, that Prince Andrew was an accessory to her death as he tortured her and me to force her murder. This person says, I need to get a passport to identify her. I will need someone to contact the passport office to get an expedited passport. Continuing, what also is very dark about this entire story is that there seemed to be an operation built around harvesting children, a birthing operation where these women were purposefully gotten pregnant to have children, and the children were then taken. If you remember John of God, Oprah's good friends that got busted for this, he had a huge operation of harvesting children, of raping women, forcing them to give birth, taking the children. Unfortunately, there's a good chance those children never made it past a couple of years old, because many of them were then had their organs harvested for adrenochrome, and who knows what else. But I'll read you this really quickly here. This is a transcript Okay, saying, or I think it was a copy of this woman's diary. She says, he is now controlling everything when it used to be Ghislaine, who some days acts like she hates me. Secrets of all of them. I'm tired of keeping this secret. I know people are wondering, but I can't tell. I'm exhausted. Broken promises. I don't understand why she's treating me on some days like I'm the enemy, but then we lay in bed together and she is how she used to be, warm. She's referring to Ghislaine Maxwell, if I understand correctly. He makes her feel my tummy, and it's so sad and confusing. Superior gene pool. Why me? It makes no sense. Why my hair color and eye color? That feels very Nazi. But in thinking about these stupid, insane theories, he has, I guess, his mind, it makes sense. The piano and music comments are made to convince me this is right and will create perfect offspring, he calls them. I don't think it works that way, and it's making me hate playing altogether, piano or viola. I'm starting to resent them both. I miss the person I was before. I was made into what feels like as a human incubator. Makes me think that maybe there's this girl who's very talented at piano and viola, and they wanted to have that gene pool. Here's some other notes. It continues. This seems to be around the birth. In the hall, Ghislaine said she was beautiful. She was, not is. She was a beautiful girl. I heard her. Where is she? Why did she stop whimpering? She was born. I heard the tiny cries. I can't do this anymore. Continuing. So it says in this entry, this is from MJ Truth. In this entry, the young girl talks about how after she gave birth, she was terrified by how much blood there was on the floor in the bed. She was allowed to hold the baby for a few minutes before the baby was taken from her, while there were, quote, horrible girls in the car waiting. I'm going to read this again. I told you this would be tough. Okay. Pressure on the placenta, question mark. Things would have been different. She said I had to be brave and strong and listen to her directions so she could help safely get the baby out. I was terrified seeing so much blood on the bed and floor and started to panic. She had me flip over to my hands and knees and had me push and push. It was so excruciating. I could feel everything as she tried to guide the baby out, but I was so tired. I felt I was dying, but suddenly she had caught a beautiful baby girl who made more than a whimper, but beautiful cries. She let me hold her hand and washed her and brought her back clean and perfect. She smelled so good and showed me how to feed her. But only after maybe 15 minutes, Mr. M came in to take her. I was hysterical and begging for more time. He said those horrible girls were in the car waiting, but I wouldn't let her go. The old woman promised me that she'd be safe, and I had to let go. 4 pounds, 10 ounces, 18.5 inches long, with beautiful long fingers. I am dead inside. Life has no meaning. I don't want to be here. Yeah. This is tough stuff. This is evil. I honestly, I hope that as much as I hate covering this, we have to shine a light on this and what's been happening and what's been protected. And if you look at our own legal system and how they've protected Epstein, I think they've lied about his death, whether he's still alive or whether he was murdered. But this is just pure evil. If this doesn't make you want to be good, and that's what it does for me. Like this, I see this stuff and I think I have to fight. I have to be good. I have to be virtuous. I have to fight back against this with morality. That's how you fight evil, right? Man, this is some heavy stuff. But looking at continuing here, it says these Epstein emails are horrifying. Whatever the DOJ has alleged about this network, it's at least 1,000 times worse. So here, if you're familiar with the terms about pizza and hot dogs, I mean, there's an FBI list where they've actually identified what these terms mean. And it was code, as far as I understand through my research, that it was all code for children and what would be done to them. So let's look at a couple of these emails. These are just emails that were in this data dump. This is from Roy Hodges to Jeffrey Epstein in 2013, who says, I wanted to let you know the crew really appreciated the pizza today. Thank you for letting us do that. Roy and Stephanie Hodges. It's just a weird email. They appreciated the pizza today. Thank you for letting us do that. Next one. This is from a redacted name to Epstein. Subject is Veru, who says, and the attachments are Veru Equity Research in Brookline. I'm sure you can look in the private financial institutions. However, it says, this is better than a Chinese cookie. See attached. Let's go for pizza and grape soda again. No one else can understand. Go, no. It makes me think, what was the attachment? I doubt it was some sort of equity firm research. This was better than a Chinese cookie, which is, maybe that's a term for like a Chinese child. See attached. Continuing. This is to Jeffrey Epstein. The subject is replying, calling. The email thread is called The Pizza Monster. It says, you mean radiating a soft glow with a look of bliss and excitement? Yeah, that's the pizza. And then there's a different thing below that says, she looks pregnant. Here we go again. So this is something someone sent a video with a flip video camcorder. Right here you can see the length was 1 minute long. And the message said, if you are not too busy. And then Jeffrey Epstein responded to that saying, I watched them all, please don't send any more. To which there's another person responding saying, sorry, I have no stomach for any, even the slightest aggro. I don't have the stomach for it or for any drama, imaginary or real. I'm still fragile off the last one and scared of shadows. Sending these, videos to share. I think that was the last one in that particular thread there. Just sickening. Continuing. This is a post from Brian Cates, who says, many of you think you want to know where the Epstein rabbit hole goes. This had to be managed carefully. A good deal of the public is still not ready to see this. You have been ruled for over 100 years by a Luciferian cult that F's kids and eats humans. If I told you that 10 years ago, how many of you would have been ready to accept it? Even when the evidence comes out, there will be a large segment of the public that will be convinced it's all fake. So this is a video. I'm not sure exactly when this initial video was taken, but it was this 21-year-old model, Gabriela Rico Jimenez, after attending an elite party. She disappeared forever after this night, was never seen again. It's about 20 seconds. I'll translate it, or I'll read the subtitles because it's in, I think, Spanish, I believe. So for those of you that are listening on the podcast, you can see what's happening. This woman is coming out. She's hysterical. She's saying, they ate humans, disgusting. They ate humans. I wasn't aware of anything. I mean, about the murder, yes. But that they had eaten humans. Humans. They smell like human flesh. So again, this is a woman that was a model that after attending an elite party, somehow she was in front of the news. Maybe she went out and started screaming on the street and they caught footage of it. I'm not sure, but she's basically looking like she just experienced maybe the night before some sort of party where there was cannibalism happening, and she just couldn't bear it, and she disappeared after this. Now, there's obviously a lot more I could go into of these files, and I'm sure that as people get more time to comb through, you're going to see a lot more information coming up. I know there's a lot in there about Bill Gates. There's information about them actually planning a pandemic together, emails talking about planning some sort of pandemic. There's a lot of stuff going on with the financial institutions, with JP Morgan, powerful people like Les Wexner. There's a lot more in there. But for tonight's show, I didn't want to go and just do a 10-hour dive of these documents. I wanted to show you the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is that this stuff is real. The whole idea of the political ponerology, right, which the book we talked about. So ponerology is the study of evil. This is a book which is the study of evil in politics. It's a fascinating read. It says a science of the nature of evil adjusted for political purposes. So it says here that the political ponerology is shocking in its clinically spare descriptions of the true nature of evil. It is poignant and is more literary passages revealing the immense suffering experienced by the researchers contaminated or destroyed by the disease they were studying. Political ponerology is a study of the founders and supporters of oppressive political regimes. Lebachowski's approach analyzes the common factors that lead to the propagation of man's inhumanity to man. Morality and humanism cannot long withstand the predations of this evil. Knowledge of its nature and its insidious effect on both individuals and groups is the only antidote. And that's a lot of what inspired me to put this show together at whatever risks may come. And I'm sure that they're watching who's covering this information. But it's dark. But it's coming out. But we have to also be cautious about the process of it coming out and being released to us, because I think there's an agenda within that as well. Like, why was this the most botched release of information? Like, way worse than Watergate or any of these other investigations. Why was this? We've been lied to and gaslit, and it doesn't exist. It does exist. It's a hoax. It doesn't exist. We have no evidence. Here's a little bit of evidence. We're going to be releasing this information. We're not releasing information. Okay, here's some binders for these influencers. Those influencers who got the binders are oddly quiet on reporting on what's happening now. It doesn't make sense. There's one thing I want to finish with that helps me make sense of this. Okay. This is a Substack article called "The Slow Release of the Epstein Files is Psychological Conditioning and It's Working." It says the public is being shown just enough to know the truth and to understand that nothing is going to happen. This is written back in December 20th of last year. It's before this big dump came out. This is important to understand. So, the Justice Department dropped thousands of pages from the Epstein files this week. It's a massive trove of photos, flight logs, and heavily redacted court records that the government had been legally forced to disclose. The batch of files looks more like a scattered photo dump, including shadowy images of Epstein with famous faces, legal documents with entire pages blacked out, and headlines about what wasn't in the files. Now, lawmakers are upset about it because they wanted more of it. Okay, here's the point. Here's the thing. The slow drip of the Epstein files isn't about justice. It's about conditioning. We've been watching information about the elite criminality being released in fragments, some names today, some documents next month, a headline here, a shrug there. This strategy trains the public to metabolize horror in manageable doses, not to act, not to demand, but to absorb so that all this evil just gets turned into background noise. Psychologically, this kind of staggered release does several things at once. First, it prevents moral climax. There's never a moment where the truth lands with enough force to seriously demand reckoning. Though maybe this recent dump of information hopefully has enough force to demand reckoning. I hope that people don't just watch over this and get back to their lives again, watching football. Okay. It says there's been no single day where the public can say, this is it, now something must happen. Maybe that day is now. Instead, outrage is constantly reset. Each drop generates a short spike of attention followed by fatigue. People argue, scroll, meme, speculate, then move on. The nervous system never gets resolution, just stimulation. Next, it reframes accountability as entertainment because the Epstein files are being treated like prestige TV with cliffhangers, recurring characters, Easter eggs, fan theories, who knew what, who was closer, who looks worse this week. It becomes a puzzle instead of a crime, and fandom instead of demand for prosecution. And don't get it twisted, none of this is accidental. It's all designed to be spectacle without consequence so that power can protect itself. When crimes are consumed like content, the audience is trained to watch and not to intervene. This is media psychology. The slow release also subtly teaches helplessness. Each batch confirms what people already suspect, which is that powerful men are implicated, and that we keep being shown again and again that nothing happens. No arrests, no trials, no real consequences. Over time, the lesson sinks in. Knowing doesn't change a damn thing. And that's a devastating psychological outcome. It produces learned futility. People stop expecting justice. They stop organizing for it. They start saying things like, well, they're all corrupt anyway, which actually serves power perfectly. There's also a normalization effect. The more frequently names like Trump, Clinton, princes, CEOs, actors, academics, lawyers, and billionaires appear adjacent to sex trafficking allegations without consequence, the more the mind files that association away as normal. Disturbing, yes. Shocking at first, but familiar. And familiarity dulls urgency. The unthinkable becomes thinkable, then livable, and then ignorable. And finally, the pacing of the file releases protects institutions. A full, uncontained release would force systems like courts, media, and political parties to respond all at once. It would collapse plausible deniability. But a drip feed allows everyone to react incrementally, strategically, and defensively. So she goes on in here, but those are the main points I wanted just to highlight there, right? Is that I think that we're experiencing this too. Like, where's the justice? What's the point in all this coming out if there's not justice? Well, I'll tell you, as he points out in this book, that when enough people see the evil for what it is and stop submitting to it, stop ignoring it, stop hiding it because it's a difficult topic, that's when we can actually have real change. And the other thing he says in here, this is what's really good. It's really important. I recommend you read this book, actually, if you can find. There's actually free PDFs of it online. Political Ponerology is only one of them. He actually makes a case that when you reach this place, as I described in the very beginning, where there's this peak saturation of evil running everything, that over time, the systems of power are created not based on skill or who's the best CEO, who's the best banker, who's the best leader. It's based upon who can be compromised. And so as that happens, you have less skill and more evil. But the system starts crumbling because of that, because it's just pure incompetence. And that gives me hope. Because if you look at the system that we're living under right now, I'd say that we are absolutely seeing pure incompetence on so many levels. And the cracks are breaking. And so what do? Well, we have to keep shining the light on this evil. But that also means that we have to remove that evil from ourselves the best we can, right? Because that evil becomes these hooks that we can be controlled by. But I think, though, that we just keep forging ahead because there are way more good people on this earth than there are these evil psychopaths. And so we have to come together. We have to share information like this. We have to really get over the created political divides, the pro-ICE, anti-ICE, left versus right, straight versus gay. Those are all constructs. Those are all boxes that they've created to put us into these boxes and create separation between us so that we're so focused on the person over there being the enemy because of his Joe Biden sign or their Black Lives Matter t-shirt. That we're so focused on that person being the enemy. And we keep watching the mainstream media with Hannity or these angry people saying, look what the left is doing or look what the right is doing. We're so focused on that we don't see who's actually causing it. It's the people above the country level, above the corporation level. It's the people above that we keep having to go after like this. We have to keep exposing this for what it is. And we got to have hope. That's the thing, is you got to have hope amidst all this darkness. I know it's difficult, but you know what's worse than all this evil stuff happening? What's worse is all of it happening and nobody knowing about it. So that's what we're doing this show for. So if you made it this long in the show, thank you. I hope that you can share this information, share this show. I try to make it very level and just calm, so it's something you can share with someone that doesn't matter what their political affiliation is, because we have to help more people understand and see the evil that exists in this world and fight back against it. All right, just that quick reminder for you before you go, before you close this show, open up a new window, go to buildtheark.com, drop in your name and your email so you get a notification as soon as this community opens up. I'm so excited for it because it's going to allow people like me and you to connect, to meet up locally for local chapters, to support each other, and so much more. So again, buildtheark.com. Thank you. Have a good